In one tweet, he says, Sardar Patel threatened to sue Subhash and Sarat Bose for fraud in forging a will of his brother, allegedly bequeathing his wealth to the left-wing causes of Bose brothers. Bose brothers settled with Sardar Patel out of court. Then he says, Subhash Bose and brother produced a will in which Vithalbhai bequeathed property to leftists. Sardar Patel sued Bose for 420. This is the language he is using for Subhash Chandra Bose. They settled. And at another place he says, few know Sardar Patel had sued Bose brothers, Subhash and Sarat, in a property case and won. Sardar's Agraj, Vithalbhai, was a trade unionist. Wonder where he gets that from, because it is not true. Who died in Europe in company of Subhash. In a shoddy will, all his property, he goes on these lines. And this tweet is from 2013. So he has been on this trip to run down the character of Subhash Bose for quite some time now. And high time it's called out. Now the facts of the case. First of all, neither was there a forgery or fraud, nor had Vallabhbhai threatened a suit, and nor was it settled out of court. After this will of Vithalbhai came to light, Vallabhbhai started cavilling about it. Why was it signed only by Bengalis and not some Gujaratis who were also with him? Where was the original? Why is the doctor's sign missing? Though this was not strictly required, since it was not a deathbed will. The will was almost 3 weeks before Vithalbhai's death. After this inquisition and innuendos from Vallabhbhai had gone on for some time, in letters, it was Subhash Bose who in September 1934 submitted the original will to Bombay High Court and filed what's called a probate petition. That's the legal process by which the validity of a will is determined. And please note this point. The petition was granted. What does that mean? The will was established as genuine in a court of law. And Vallabhbhai was directed to send the proceeds to Subhash Bose, which incidentally was specified as 3/4 and not all of the property as Tiwari is claiming. Now Patel started acting up. He refused to comply, saying that there had to be an agreement on the interpretation of the will. So he did not challenge the genuineness of the will. He was contending on its language. And why? Jealousy. Subhash Bose had by now risen tremendously in fame, so much so that even Gandhi was compelled to propose his name for Congress president at the Haripura session in February 1938. This was bitterly proposed by Vallabhbhai at that time, and in 1939, when Bose sought re-election, again Vallabhbhai opposed him and threatened to use his clout with the Congress Working Committee to neutralize him. Patel was all through the cunning politician and had this hostility towards Subhash Chandra Bose. Now, was Vithalbhai's will altogether out of the way? Not really. Before him there was Chittaranjan Das, who also willed his entire property for the nation, in spite of having a family. They were both fierce Swarajists. This term I'll explain later, but basically they were uncompromising nationalists devoted to the nation. Vallabhbhai, in contrast, was a devout Gandhian, and that the reason for estrangement between the two brothers. At the Tripuri session later that year, when Bose trumped Gandhi's candidate Pattabhi Sitaramayya to the post of Congress president in April 1939, it was Patel who manipulated the working committee, making 12 of the 15 members resign and forced Bose's ouster. But he was not satisfied with this. To assail Bose further, he approached the court, this time to have the will of his deceased brother invalidated through Govardhan Das Patel, one of the Gujaratis who was with Vithalbhai in his last days. This was in September 1939. Full 5 years after the will had been attested as genuine. It was at this time that Sarat Bose came to represent his brother. And this plea by Patel was, again, not on the will's genuineness, but entirely a technicality. The appeal was filed under sections 138 and 139, which are the Indian Succession Acts. and not 420 as Tiwari's claims. It was contested by Sharat Bose under Section 2, which is the Charitable Endowments Act. To cut a long story short, the will was disallowed due to unclear language as to the will's purpose. In this situation, the only entity the court could hand over the property to was the family. So Patel didn't exactly win the case. He used legal artifice to claim the property and disregarded his brother's dying wish. The judgment is there on India Qanun for those of you who wish to look it up. So the only fraud here is Tiwari's tweets.